and we want to bring in somebody who knows exactly about this. Heartbreaking stories are coming out of Israel from civilians who were impacted by Hamas' surprise attack over the weekend. Abbey Onn is an American living north of Tel Aviv. She shared these images with us of her 5 family members who she says were kidnapped in southern Israel during the attacks. Her missing relatives range in age from 12 years old to the 80s. Abbey is joining us now with a little bit more. She has lived in Israel for 8 years now. Abbey, I cannot imagine the nightmare that you are living through right now. Tell us how things unfolded for you. When did you last hear from your family members?
Thank you for having me. We last heard from them on WhatsApp in the middle of the day on Saturday. We got messages throughout the morning that Hamas was in the kibbutz, that there was gunfire, and that they were in their homes, that they had overturned everything in their house, and that they were afraid for their lives. I believe that the Israeli army told them to stop using their phones. But when the rest of the family came out of the bomb shelters after Hamas had burned and murdered half of the kibbutz, they understood that these 5 members were not there. And it was on Sunday that we saw on Instagram, on social media, the video of Erez in the hands of Hamas, which made us understand that they had been taken captive and that they're being held hostage in Gaza.
Abbey, one of the things that I have always understood from my friends who live in Israel, from the time that I covered the region, is there's a sense from Israelis that although you're surrounded by your enemies, the feeling was always that in Israel you could be safe, that the government, the military, the police, the IDF was there to keep Jews safe in the wake of the Shoah, and that this was the reason for Israel's existence, so that Jews all over the world could find a place to be safe. Has that sense of safety and security been shattered in the wake of what some people are saying was an intelligence failure, a massive intelligence failure?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, it is something that I don't put enough time right now into thinking about. But as an American, I have always felt more safe here. But for all the reasons you just said, right? We know that terror is a threat, and we know that Iron Dome and the military are there to protect us. And this was not that. This was a massive intelligence break that allowed 3,000 terrorists to come into the country by land, sea, and air and begin murdering and raping and savagely brutalizing civilians. And we just want Americans to understand that this is a human issue. This isn't political. This is a Pearl Harbor and a 9/11. And the words that my cousin used, it was their own Shoah, it was their own Holocaust. And we just want them safely returned.
We just ran a press briefing with other Americans who want their loved ones safely returned too. And in some of the coverage, what I've been hearing over and over again is a lot of the support is coming from within the community. People are going back into some of these neighborhoods and getting people's pets or things that are really important to them. But it's not coming from local government or government sort of beyond local. Have you heard from any of your local officials?
No, look, I run an organization for immigrants in Israel, and we are banding together to raise funds and find the gear that our lone soldiers need and to bring gear in from outside of Israel. And I think very much the country is united, but it's grassroots.
Abbey, when let's show again the photo of your family members that are now believed to be hostages. And it is sort of mind-blowing to me that they range in age from teenager to someone who's 80 years old, presumably who would have at least been alive during the time of the Holocaust, and to be, as you just said, feeling as if they are in another show, another Holocaust in 2023. What can you tell us about these individuals, these family members of yours? I just want to hear their stories and who they are, what they were like, what they are like, and the things that they're interested in doing when they're just living their lives.
Carmela is the son of an American who moved to Israel 100 years ago to build this country, to build literally from the ground up. Her father built a kibbutz. And she fell in love with Uri and moved to Nir Oz almost 60 years ago. And since then, she's become the matriarch of a major clan of people, and they are family oriented. They love the land. They're deeply, deeply connected to Near Oz and to this area and to peace. And Carmela was, you know, the mother and grandmother, not only to the people in these pictures, but to a much larger community. And they were, you know, they loved the simple things. They loved eating together. They loved celebrating things. They loved where they lived. And I think you heard in the press conference, Near Oz is no longer. And it is an unthinkable atrocity that from one day to the next that could happen.
Well, Abbey, you know, we are really appreciative that you are talking to us. I know it is not easy. I know you want to get the word out that you like to know what's going on. I imagine if you haven't heard from local authorities, you haven't heard from American authorities either about, you know, what's being done to get in contact with your loved ones or anything along those lines.
No, we just want to get the word out. We want the Biden administration, we want the Israeli government to understand that the more information we can get, the more pressure we can put on Hamas, on a terrorist organization, to release these people and bring them home safely, that is the only outcome that we want.
I was going to ask, you know, you've heard the threat from Hamas about hostages, that if Israel, you know, attacks what they say, you know, civilian locations without warning, that this will put hostages at risk. You know, I can't imagine what it's like for you to hear that and what you want the Israeli government to do.
I want them to find a diplomatic solution. I want them to know, I want them to do what they know how to. This is not the first time this country has been up against this kind of challenge. And they have an army and a government that knows how to solve this, and they just need to do that. And this is above my understanding. And so I'm just trying to use my voice to make sure that the American people understand this isn't political. This is humanitarian. These are civilians who are being terrorized, and we want them brought home. So,
and Anne-Marie, that's exactly why I wanted to ask that question as well, because Abbey, what you're saying is something that we've not heard. Frankly, to be clear, in the wake of this, all we have heard from those of us that are far away from the situation are politicians and military leaders talking about what's to come. Bombings, a retaliation, and Hamas threatening to execute hostages on live television. But you're, as somebody who has family members that have been taken hostage, you would like to see a diplomatic solution to this. I mean, I think a lot of people who are not in the midst of this, after 75 years of this never-ending cycle of violence, would also welcome that. But specifically in this moment, you'd like to see that outcome.
Of course. I mean, I also have endless amounts of friends and neighbors called up to duty. And the last thing I want is for there to be more loss of life on either side.
Abbey Onn, thank you so much for spending some very precious moments with us. We are praying for you and your family members. Hopefully they will be returned to you and the rest of your family soon. We're hoping for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abbey.